Hello, my name is Sasha Podell, and I'm a second-year student at the University of Oxford studying French and Spanish. I'm here today to talk to you about my research and article called From Border Wars to Drug Cartels, Understanding Ecuador's Escalating Crisis, where I unveil the complexities of Ecuador's turbulent journey from a tourist destination to a nation in the grip of internal armed conflict. I chose to focus on Ecuador in particular because it is currently all over the news, and I wanted to dig deeper into the reasons for its descent into violence. As I'm reading Spanish, I'm also very interested in the politics, history and current affairs of Latin America more generally, so this fits well into my area of study. So today, we will explore the roots of Ecuador's turmoil and unravel the crisis that has pushed it to enter a state of emergency. To understand the plight of this country, we must first journey through its economic history, an unstable affair marked by dependence and crisis. Colonized by the Spanish Empire in the 1500s, Ecuador gained independence in 1822, but struggled with poverty for much of the 20th century. The discovery of oil in the Amazon region brought hope, but it also tethered Ecuador's economy to the volatile oil market. The crash in oil prices thus meant that the 80s and 90s plunged the nation into a financial crisis, culminating in the adoption of the US dollar as its official currency in 2000 instead of the sucre. But Ecuador's challenges extend beyond economic instability. Its military history is fraught with conflicts, particularly with neighbouring Peru, which is why I chose it as a post-conflict community. There have been three major Ecuadorian-Peruvian wars, known as the War of 1941, or Guerra de 41 in Spanish, the Paquisha War in 1981, and the Cenepa War in 1995. Territorial disputes have fueled tensions between the two nations throughout their history, but there has been an effort on both sides to resolve and try to move past these tensions. Despite diplomatic efforts to foster stability, however, Ecuador's post-conflict landscape has become a breeding ground for violent unrest, primarily driven by drug gangs. Fast forward to 2024, Ecuador faces an unprecedented escalation in violence triggered by the escape of two major gang leaders from prison. The first, José Adolfo Macías Villamar, or Fito as he is known, is the leader of the Los Choneros cartel and escaped on the 7th of January, followed 2 days later by Fabricio Colón Pico, another major gang leader of Los Lobos. As you've probably heard in the news, the ensuing chaos culminated in a brazen attack on a television studio by masked gunmen. So on the 9th of January, members of the Tiburones gang stormed the building as the television show TC was live on air, waving guns and explosives at the cameras and claiming to be in possession of bombs. You could hear gun noises in the background, and this went on for at least 15 minutes, so the population could sort of watch the whole thing. This attack prompted the President Daniel Noboa to declare a state of internal armed conflict, officially entering into a sort of war with these gangs. So the nation finds itself in the throes of a war against drug cartels, a war that threatens the fabric of Ecuadorian society. Learning about this sort of brought me to ask myself, why did this raid happen? I mean, there is no definite answer by any means, and this is a nuanced and complex situation. But in my opinion, prison and the sort of intricate web of corruption and power wielded by these drug cartels is a major component. With ties infiltrating law enforcement, judiciary and politics, these cartels commandeer influence from behind prison walls, perpetuating the cycle of sort of violence and impunity that is seen in other countries in South America. They basically control the country as they have the power and money. The fact that they raided the live television show then is a sort of, I guess, manifestation of this, because they're kind of showing the government and Ecuadorians, the rest of the country, the rest of the civilians, also the rest of the countries around them, that they basically have the power and that the authorities have no control over their actions, which means they also have no control over their violence, and they're sort of showing that they can kind of do anything they want to because they've created this landscape that is so dependent on their presence. However, I don't think the surge in crime is only isolated to this factor. It's sort of symptomatic of Ecuador's pivotal role in the global cocaine trade as well, which is a major factor in this crime. Because it's geographically located between Colombia and Peru, and those countries are the top producers of coca, Ecuador has become a crucial transit point for trafficking cocaine. So, for example, about a third of Colombia's cocaine went through this port in 2019, which also made the homicide rate increase by over 500% since 2016 in that area. So it's clearly not a coincidence that this violence is sort of rising. As the drug gangs enter into more conflict between each other, this has also expanded to create conflict between them and the government, which is a difficult issue to resolve and carries on today. The COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated the situation as well, amplifying economic woes and providing fertile ground for criminal enterprises to flourish within Ecuador's informal economy. Because of the economic crisis triggered by COVID, it became a lot easier for the drug cartels to launder their money through this unstable economic system, which again made the drug problem worse as well as the control. But amidst the chaos, it's the people of Ecuador who bear the brunt of this crisis. Journalist Ana Maria Rura shares first-hand accounts of the pervasive fear gripping her homeland. Families altering routines, cities once vibrant, now deserted after dark. She explains that because of the narco-trafficking, her family is not able to do the things that they used to, which makes the situation in Ecuador a major security crisis. It used to be a relatively safe tourist destination, beautiful, including the Galapagos Islands, and now it's a place that people fear to go to, and it's so uncertain and unstable that even its inhabitants are scared to do the things that they normally would do. So in my article, I mentioned the story of a woman who was leaving work and got kidnapped and dragged into a car. And luckily her husband happened to recognise her hat from inside the car, so followed it and was shot by the people driving. But he carried on and they realised that he wasn't stopping, so they let the woman out. This is one example of many that exposes the stark reality facing Ecuadorians today, a reality marred by violence and uncertainty. From a human needs perspective, Ecuador's crisis strikes at the very core of survival, understanding and connection. As I write about, Dr. Kenneth Asher's framework highlights the erosion of these fundamental needs. Safety compromised by escalating violence, education thwarted by poverty, and connection severed by mass exodus. Over 30% of Ecuador's population is in a state of extreme poverty, which means they have limited access to education, healthcare, and even food. This creates a heart-wrenching cycle because without access to good education, the young people in Ecuador lack access to good job opportunities, and so the only way to sustain themselves is to join this already prosperous cycle of narco-trafficking and crime. This means that tackling this issue is a lot harder than it seems because it's now embedded within society. So, Ecuador now stands at a crossroads, a nation in turmoil, grappling with internal strife and external pressures. As the world watches, the plight of Ecuador underscores the fragility of peace and the resilience of its people in the face of adversity. I hope this podcast has been a useful way of understanding the crisis in Ecuador and that you've learned something new. Thank you so much for listening.